All right, don't have any questions? Rick?
Coach, the question was brought up earlier about kind of relating this to 9/11, and it's a crisis that our country and everybody is going through. The only difference this time is that there really isn't sports as an outlet, as an escape for people. Your thoughts on that, and how you've been able to maybe wrap your mind around what's going on and relating it to your student athletes?
Well, one, I think there's no way to compare it to 9/11. I don't think you can do that for the people that lost loved ones like they did at that time. I think it would offend them if we went that route. And this is something different, definitely. And has it affected everybody? There's no question. I would only say that I would like to think that our student athletes and other people their age understand how serious this is and how important they are, that they don't do something where they're being careless and they bring something back to their parents, grandparents. That could obviously be a very dangerous situation. And but without sports, I think it's a time too. In some ways, I think it's God trying to get our attention right now too. And the fact that it's a time where, for instance, with our players right now, I know as a parent, where I want to be most of all, I want to be with my kids. I want my kids to be with me. And that's not possible in some ways with some people, but when it is possible, like with our players where they can be at home with their parents, we want them to be there. And so I just think that in terms of without sports and all this, I mean, there's going to be, if that's what people want to do. If they want to watch something, there's going to be something on TV, and that's how they want to spend their time doing that. But I think right now there's also a time that we can reflect and get lost in a lot of things. If nothing else, if you're with your families, it's great quality time there. But I've never, to be quite honest with you, Rick, I've never lived my life around TV and watching sports. That's not, so I can't really relate to that, if you want to know the truth. And it's a very surreal time, and it's an unbelievable time for all of us in a lot of ways because of the fact that you feel like somewhat, in terms of being able to move and go and do what you do without thought. You can't do that because right now it's not about us, it's about our country. It's about the safety of our country. It's about making sure that we don't do anything that, and again, I hope young people understand that. They don't do anything that's going to bring harm to other people by being careless.
David and Trey?
Rick, how would you describe kind of the conversation, I guess in Nashville, when you guys realized kind of the finality of the situation? What that was like?
Well, we really didn't have one in Nashville. When we got the word, we went back and we told them that we wanted to get back and we wanted to be on the road by 11:30, and because we knew a storm was coming in, and so we did. We got there quick, and I think we were back on the road in about an hour, heading back this way. And when we got back, we had our medical staff come in and talk to our players about where we were at that point in time, and the caution that needed to be taken. And we did talk briefly as a team about, we're going through something right here that is unprecedented. And the fact is, we've got to take it serious. And we knew that some guys, obviously from the time they had left Nashville to get back here, they had made plans to go do some things. And again, we just really tried to point out to them they've got to be careful and take serious that, the social distancing had been discussed there too and then. But we did reflect and talk a little bit about the year, and we certainly think, really Jordan Bowden and for what he did for us and what he meant to our team. And then we briefly talked about the season, but not to the extent that you might think, because our mind was more on this and about us doing our part to do the right thing. And all we had done was assured our guys at our university, the leadership from our university would tell us what to do, and whatever they tell us, that's what we're going to do. And we're not going to discuss any of it. And so most of them went on their way. Our two international guys have stayed here. They're looking to get home because, just like I said, their parents want them at home. And again, I get that because I'm a parent. I know what I wish I could do right now. But that was pretty much the extent of, because at that point in time there was so much unknown too. But And what we've done as a staff, we're in constant contact with them every day. We've divided our players up to where every day they're checking in with coaches and making sure that they understand the severity of where we are right now, and really trying to get them to pay close attention to what has come out of our government, and also not just there, but what our university has decided, and we're going to continue to do that.
Trey?
Do you think that your players right now, and I know you said you talked to them about precautions, what to do while they're on spring break, potentially at beaches or wherever they're at, but do you think they fully grasp everything that's going on right now, or is this kind of a shock to them as much as it maybe is to you?
To be honest with you, do I think that? I think back when I were their age, and I don't think I would have fully grasped the severity of it. And that's being honest, and that's also telling you, no, I don't think they have. I don't, because I don't think I would have grasped it as a matter of fact, I know I wouldn't have. I would have thought, hey, this can't happen to me, and probably wouldn't put a lot of thought into it, and just went on about my business without paying the kind of attention. And I also think that's the reason that our government has done the right thing to get the attention. Say, hey, if it means shutting down things to get people's attention, we're going to have to do it, because I think up to this point, there's a young age group that hasn't figured it out yet. And again, I will tell you, if I were in that age group like I was at one time, I don't think I would have reacted any different. So now I hope that they do understand it and can get a hold of it and understand that it's not just about them, but it's about being in the wrong place, getting something that could take back to their grandparents, their parents, and that would be something that they'd have to live with, that I don't think they'd want to live with.
You kind of touched on it when you were answering that question, but because of the international, it's such different. They're so far, and every country's got different things going on right now. How much have you really tried to be in contact with them and see what they can do? Because that's got to be a little bit, I would say, scarier if you're,
Well, it is in terms of our staff. They certainly have kept our families abreast of everything there, and we've talked about it for a couple of days. And again, we've taken we've listened to Coach Foreman reading everyone about what's going on campus here, and the fact of the matter is their parents want them home, just like I would want my kids home. And so, with that said, we've over the last couple of days, knowing that we would probably get to that decision, looking at flights, trying to give them the best advice on how to get there, and obviously the NCAA will pay up to a certain point of that, and then but the parents, regardless of what it is, they're going to pay whatever they have to do to get them home. We wish we could fund the whole thing, but we're not allowed to do that. But with that said, we again, like right when I walked over here, Mary Carter was on the phone with the travel agency trying to figure out the best route to get each guy home, where it would be the easiest way for them to get there without having to stay over somewhere here or there or whatever. So that's been going on for a couple of days, to be quite honest with you, and to try to figure out the best, surest, quickest way where there's can be as easy as it possibly can be.
And none of the restrictions or anything that the governments have put in place?
Well, that's what she's dealt with there, where they can fly to places where the restrictions aren't a place where they might have to stay over, turn it into a week trip. That's what she's tried to do, and she's been able to, through our travel agency people, find out the best routes. And like Santi, I think, for instance, I think there was a direct flight from Miami that I think has been canceled, that they don't fly that flight to Uruguay. And so it's just a matter of, and again, she has spent a lot of time trying to figure out the best way to do it, to make it as easy and as simple as possible, where the parents would feel good about it too. And we won't do any of that without the parents understanding the route that they have to take to make this happen. But I can tell you the one thing that has come loud and clear from them is they would like to have their sons home with them.
Mike?
Rick, once the time comes, how do you approach an off season like this? We don't really know the timing of anything, or pretty limited right now what you're going to be able to do.
Again, Mike, I can only go back. First of all, we're going to follow every rule that's in place right now with this, but I can only go back as a kid. And I know this, if I'm a kid, if I want to be if I'm training this, that, or whatever, I'm going to find a way to work out. And I like to think that I would be smart enough to do it in a way that I'm not putting anybody at harm. I don't see players like to be quite honest with you, one of the reasons talking to Urosh and Santiago, they want to go home because they want to work out. They know that they can. So, and I think that depending on what happens here, I'm sure everybody has a way that they can, they want to go work out, which I think they will. I think athletes will find a way to do that. I mean, I just can't imagine world-class athletes not doing that. But we're going to do what we're told here, and until something should change that way. And but I will say this: with me saying that, we would tell our guys just this: whatever you decide to do, you better make sure the safety. You better make sure you're not putting anybody in harm's way, yourself and other people around you, and be smart about it. And that's why we are daily talking to our guys to make sure we know what they're doing, because I know once they're home with their parents are going to do that. But in the meantime, we want to do that too. And but right now there's a lot of things that can come out of this in terms of the time that it makes people really step back and focus. And sometimes we get things out of whack in terms of what's really important. Something like it happens, it brings it all into perspective, what is really, really important to each one of us, and that's something that I would like to think at this point in time we'll all figure some of that out. And I think that, going back to what Rick said, I think some of us will find out that we can live without watching sports. We can find out there's something else there that maybe we've put too much time here or too much time there. So I have to believe that there's going to be some of those things that might come out of this as well.
Wes?
We talked about this, I guess, in part earlier, but you got a lot of these kids here have, they've wanted to play basketball at this level for their whole lives probably, so they've been all about, going to school and then basketball, They haven't really had a lot of free time. How do you make sure that or have conversations with them about using that time wisely and not kind of taking advantage of being young and maybe free?
Well, again, I think you do have that conversation with them. I think that you do have the conversation where, again, I can't imagine any of our guys thinking, hey, this, however long this goes until we finally can somewhat, it becomes under control, and who knows how long that will be. I just can't imagine someone that has a future that wants to be an athlete is not going to take that serious. Where I also where I have concern from being in Knoxville and being involved with some of the youth programs here are really those kids that when they get back from spring break, no school, no after school programs, where maybe they're not quite as mature as what I like to think that collegiate athletes are. That what are they going to do with their time? And so there's a lot of other things that being here and loving Knoxville, Tennessee, that over the last couple of days I've talked to some people about, and there's families, there's people that have lost jobs. I mean, I got a call today where there's families that need help, and there's people out there today I know giving out food where after-school programs were a big part of it. So what we're doing is real-life stuff here, and so when you think about what your question is, it's important, no doubt, and I think the people that, I will say this, some guys on my team work harder than other guys. And I think some people are going to continue to work and go at it, and some people will take it as, okay, I can slack off a little bit here. That's why in the end, we always talk about players decide who plays, and that's why, because some guys are going to continue to work and take it to another level, and regardless of the circumstances, they're going to find a way to continue to get better. And some people will look at it as, I've got a chance to take some time off here, which, again, I don't think the time off is a bad thing if you reflect, use it the right way, and think about it. But I also think that we've got to get out of ourselves and think about other people right now who have really been impacted in a way. I mean, right now, what have our players lost? I mean, you can talk about the semester. I mean, there's a lot there, but there are people that are really in a tough situation that we might not be thinking about that we really should be thinking about.
Yeah.
I know, Coach, eligibility for winter sports isn't a priority for you right now, but it's still being discussed. Where do you stand on that issue of giving more eligibility for winter sports? And then what are the other ramifications that people aren't thinking of if those were to be made?
Well, again, if we're going to speak transparent, be honest, you know, if I were like I have a lot of respect for Steve Forbes and East Tennessee State and the fact that they had won their way into the NCAA tournament. But if you go back and if you read Danny Gavitt's comment about the tournament, they haven't even bracketed it. So who are we talking about here? Some teams' seasons are already over. And so how can you go back and are you to decide, okay, by the rule, you know, who is the real representative from the SEC? Who's the real representative from the ACC? Because by that bylaw, it's the tournament champion. So right now, and they refuse to put out a bracket. They said we're not going to we're not going to deal in hypotheticals. We're not going to put a bracket out. So the line is, where do you cut this off? I mean, where does a guy like Jordan Bowden, who, you know, before we played that game, I don't think we were in the NCAA tournament. And I think there's a lot of seniors that were like that. So if you are going to say only the teams that qualified at that time, that might be the ones you might say that. But I can't imagine any league in the country by themselves agreeing to something like that. So we're talking hypotheticals, and I will go back to what Danny said. We're not dealing in hypotheticals. And so it's a tough thing. I mean, sometimes, there's things that happen in life that are really, really tough. I do get the spring. I get all that. I do. But when we played a whole season and there's going to be an asterisk by the NCAA tournament, when they said that, I don't see how they can go back and do that after they've already said there's going to be an asterisk there. That means everybody that was in college basketball that hadn't played their last game or were in the tournament, who knows how it would have unfolded? Who knows who could have come through a tournament? So there's just so many things that I don't think that would be the known that we could ever figure out, you know, who are the, do you give it to every team? Do you give it to the ones that had already lost? I mean, how do you do that? So there's a lot, but right now I don't think that's on anybody's agenda. I think that we all should be focused on what's happening in our country right now, and whatever comes out of that, even though we are part of the NCAA, I still think our real focus should be on what's happening in the country right now.
Finish up the Trey.
Going back to what you were talking about with Santiago not being able to get home immediately in Miami in Uruguay, and you talked about the NCAA not being able to, you know, you're not allowed to pay for the whole thing, the university is not. Is that something that maybe they can take a look at from now on? If cases where extreme measures have to be taken and you need to get a player or a student athlete home immediately?
Well, again, they do have a fund in place. You would ask this. It would not surprise me that when all this shakes out, that's another thing that I think we were just talking back there about it, where that fund's going to go way down, which will have to be built back up. But in a crisis like this, you expect those type things, and you expect. Again, I think with the NCAA, you know, that any of these things you'll probably be able to petition or do this or do that and see what happens. But again, right now the utmost important thing is to get them home, because, like I said, their parents really want them to be home with them.
Coach, thank you.
Okay, thank you all.